My name is Camille Ferris, and I'm 34 years old. The morning I left Santa Rosa for good, I wasn't running, I was reclaiming. After years of being the dependable one, the quiet one, the placeholder in my own life, I had finally uncovered the truth, the secret bank accounts, the erased inheritance, the betrayal wrapped in smiles. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't raise my voice. I just moved forward with legal records in one hand and a pearl hair clip in the other. Before I share what happened when everything fell apart, my marriage, my family, my silence, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, this story is for you. It was supposed to be a beautiful Saturday in early autumn, the kind that made the vineyards around Sonoma glow like gold. My brother, Ethan, was getting married. I was meant to show up, sit pretty in a sage green dress, pose for family portraits, and smile like nothing was wrong. That was the plan. But then my phone buzzed. The message was anonymous. Just 10 words. Don't go to the wedding. Check Adrian's studio instead. Adrian, my husband. Photographer. Dreamer. The man I trusted more than anyone. I blinked at the screen, waiting for it to change, for the words to reshape themselves into something less terrifying. But they didn't. Instead, the quiet unraveling began. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. Have you ever discovered the truth too late? Or just in time? The morning had started soft. Light drifted into my room like a whisper, slipping through gauzy curtains and crawling across the tiled floor of my cottage. I'd woken early, nervous, but committed to doing everything right. It was Ethan's day, and despite our distance in recent years, I was determined to be present. Gracious. Helpful. The good sister. I sat at my vanity, slowly brushing my hair. I hadn't cut it in years. Adrian liked it long. But this morning, it felt heavier than usual. My dress hung by the door, understated and elegant. Sage green, chosen not to stand out, but to blend in. After all, no one expected fireworks from me. That had always been Ethan's domain. The golden child. The charmer. I was the steady one. The listener. The quiet support in the background. I'd arranged the flowers for the reception myself, baby's breath and wild roses, just like Ethan's fiancé liked. I'd confirmed the catering twice, even fixed a typo on the printed programs. I was always useful. Always invisible. And somewhere along the way, I'd mistaken that for love. I reached for a delicate gold locket on my dresser. It had belonged to my mother, who passed away when I was 20. She gave it to me the day I left for college, saying, "Keep something close to your heart." I hadn't worn it in years. But today, it felt necessary, like armor. Then came the vibration. I stared at the screen again. Don't go to the wedding. Check Adrian's studio instead. The words clawed at the edges of my calm. I told myself it was a mistake. A wrong number. A cruel joke. But the chill in my spine said otherwise. My fingers trembled as I clutched the phone. My breath caught. And something inside me cracked, not loud, not all at once. Just the soft, shattering kind of truth. I sat back down at the vanity. Everything around me blurred except my own reflection. Eyes wide. Mouth parted. Heart thudding in a sick rhythm. That message didn't just ruin a wedding. It unraveled a life. I grabbed my keys, still in my dress, still with my mother's locket warm against my chest. When I opened the door to Adrian's studio, what I saw changed everything. Not just my marriage. Not just my role in the family. But who I was. They thought they could cut me out of the picture, rewrite the story without me. But what they didn't know is this. I had just picked up the pen. And I wasn't finished writing. Not even close. What kind of woman would I be if I ignored it? What kind of woman would I be if I went? Those two questions looped in my mind as I sat there, still half-dressed, the faint scent of rose water on my wrists clinging to a version of me that now felt far away. 100 memories crowded in at once. Adrian staying late at the gallery, the curt tone on his calls, the way his eyes used to light up when he saw me, and how lately they didn't. The changed rhythm of how he touched the small of my back, if he touched me at all. I'd written it all off. Because I didn't want to be that wife, the suspicious one, the overthinker, the one who lets shadows spoil the sunlight. So I swallowed my doubts. Swallowed them so long I forgot what it felt like to trust my own instincts. But now I had to decide. Ruin my brother Ethan's wedding day and step right back into the difficult sister role, or, for once, listen to the voice inside me that had been quietly withering under every "it's fine, Camille." I heard my therapist's voice in my mind, gentle but firm. "You've swallowed so much silence, Camille. You don't even recognize your own scream anymore." I stood. I walked slowly toward the door. The soft clack of my heels against the tile sounded like questions I wasn't ready to answer. I left the sage green dress hanging by the window. Maybe I'd still wear it later. Maybe I wouldn't. Outside, the California morning was cool, the vineyards to the west still bathed in mist. Sonoma always looked like a postcard this time of year, beautiful, distant, and a little unreal. I slipped into my car, turned the ignition, and pulled onto the road. The radio came on, a bubbly pop song, too perfectly sweet for what I was feeling. I shut it off. I drove in silence. Traffic through downtown Santa Rosa was strangely light for a Saturday. Not one red light. Just green after green after green, like the city itself had made up its mind. Like it was saying, go. Each block closer to Adrian's studio made it harder to breathe. I wasn't sure what I wanted to find. Maybe it would be locked and dark. Maybe I'd peek in, see nothing, laugh at myself, and chalk the message up to a cruel prank. I parked in the underground lot, sat still for a beat longer than I should have, then stepped out. The slap of my heels against the concrete echoed in the stillness, sharp and unforgiving. It reminded me of a courtroom, empty before the verdict, but already thick with tension. The building's front doors were unlocked, which was strange for a weekend. Adrian's studio was on the third floor, corner unit. I remembered when we first picked it out together, those high ceilings, the open light. I had bought him a tiny bonsai tree for his desk the day he opened. He called it our tree. He never once remembered to water it. The elevator groaned as it climbed. I stood stiff, hands clasped tightly. When I reached his floor, I stepped into a hallway dimmed by drawn blinds. Only the humming of a vending machine broke the silence. Then I walked. Each step louder than the last, like the building itself wanted me to hear myself coming. I paused at the door to his studio. My palm hovered over the handle. This could be nothing, I told myself. Just nerves. Just fear. But then I heard it. A laugh, soft, female, familiar. Close. And suddenly, the message wasn't the thing that shattered me. It was the sound of her. I knew that voice. Soft. Almost sing-song, like someone who knows she's being listened to and wants to be wanted. Then came the low, unmistakable chuckle. Adrian. I would have known the rhythm of his laugh anywhere, even if I hadn't heard that particular version of it in years. It didn't belong to the man who read financial reports aloud while reheating leftover risotto. It belonged to someone lighter. Looser. Flirtatious. Someone I apparently didn't know anymore. I didn't knock. Didn't barge in. Instead, I turned the handle slowly, carefully, just enough to let the latch click open without sound. I pushed the door open 3, maybe 4 inches. That was all it took. There he was. Adrian. Shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest, posture leaned forward, not in tension, but in intimacy. One arm rested casually on the desk, fingers curled around a woman's thigh. She was close. Too close. Not just physically, but emotionally. You could see it in the way her head tilted back, dark hair tumbling over his shoulder like it belonged there. Talia. His assistant. I'd met her a dozen times. She always smiled too long. Now I knew why. Her manicured nails skimmed the collar of his shirt like she'd done it before. More than once. The way her body pressed into his didn't suggest temptation, it suggested routine. They didn't see me. Not even when I stepped fully into the room. Not even when I stood there, 3 long seconds, breathing air that no longer felt mine. His hand slipped up her leg. Her lips parted. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I didn't say his name. I just watched. Something in me disconnected. Like a circuit breaker flipped, and everything inside me went dark, except my vision. My limbs didn't move. My breath didn't catch. My throat didn't tighten. It wasn't shock. It was surrender. The office, the life inside that room didn't belong to me. Maybe it never had. I was just a figure in the doorway. A forgotten chapter in their story. 10 seconds passed. Maybe 15. I counted them. It gave my mind something to do. Then, as calmly as I had arrived, I stepped back. Pulled the door closed with a gentle click. The kind of quiet sound that ends a sentence. Or a marriage. The hallway was still empty. Carpeted. Muted. The only sound was the beep of the elevator as I pressed the button. I didn't turn around. I didn't wonder if they'd noticed me. They hadn't. Outside, Santa Rosa was fully awake now. The city didn't pause just because my life had. The sidewalks bloomed with weekenders in sunglasses and soft denim. A couple walked past holding hands, laughing about potential dog names, Moose or Clover. A teenager buzzed by on a neon green scooter, earbuds in, mouthing lyrics to something upbeat and forgettable. I stood at the intersection of 3rd and Mendocino, pretending to wait for the light to change even though it already had. Then I walked. Nowhere specific. Just away. A bench across from the fountain near Courthouse Square looked empty, shaded by the limbs of an old elm tree. I sat, crossing my legs at the ankle the way my mother taught me in church when I was 12. To anyone passing by, I might have looked like a woman waiting for a friend. Calm. Composed. Not someone whose life had just collapsed under her heels. But I wasn't waiting for anyone. I was just trying to remember how to breathe. I folded my hands in my lap. My nails still perfect. Not a chip. The soft pink polish gleamed in the sunlight like it didn't know how to break. My lipstick hadn't smudged. The gold locket at my neck caught the breeze just slightly. The pearl hair clip still held everything in place. Polished. Regal. As if nothing had happened at all. But inside, I didn't feel like a person anymore. I felt like someone who had been erased. And somehow, everyone else had gotten the memo before I did. From a few blocks away, I heard the clang of a church bell. Of course. A wedding. Some other bride. Some other woman gliding toward a man in a crisp suit. Not to someone with his shirt undone on a Saturday morning, whispering things to a woman who wasn't his wife. My mind drifted, as it often did in moments I didn't want to feel. This time, to a birthday when I was 10. It had landed on the same day Ethan came down with the flu. We'd been planning a small celebration, just cake, a few friends from school, nothing huge. But that morning, Mom had looked apologetic and said, "We'll celebrate another day, sweetheart. Ethan's really sick. It's just not the right time." I'd worn my pale yellow dress anyway. Sat at the dining table by myself with a single cupcake the neighbor had dropped off. I remember watching the frosting melt, waiting for someone to remember. No one did. Not even my dad, who was usually better about those things. That was the first time I learned how to swallow disappointment quietly. I was 34 now, and nothing had changed. My emotions were still negotiable. My place in people's lives still temporary. Still dependent on whether it was convenient to care about me. My phone buzzed. Mom. Then again. Ethan. I stared at the screen as it lit up and faded. Then lit up again. Faded. They didn't know what I knew. They were just calling to ask where I was, why I wasn't at the church yet, if I'd gotten caught in traffic. I couldn't bring myself to answer. Because there wasn't a version of the conversation where I didn't feel like the villain. If I told them what I saw, would they even believe me? Or would it be what it always was? You're reading too much into things, Camille. I'd spent most of my life protecting everyone else's moments from my truth. I wasn't going to change that. Not today. Not yet. Another buzz. This time it was a calendar alert. Ethan and Marissa's wedding, 11:30 a.m., Courtyard Chapel. With a little red heart emoji, probably added by Marissa herself. I opened the notification. Then hit delete. The first tear fell quietly, sliding down my cheek like it knew it didn't belong there. I pressed the side button of my phone and let the screen go black. Then slowly lowered it into my lap. Around me, the city carried on. A delivery driver muttered into his Bluetooth headset. 2 teenagers shouted and raced scooters down the sidewalk. A couple strolled past with iced coffee and matching sandals, debating dinner plans. And I sat there, dabbing my cheek with the corner of my sleeve. careful not to smudge the foundation I'd applied just hours earlier, when the day had still held promise. My sage green dress still folded neatly at my knees. My clutch still matched my heels. But there was no one around to see it. No one noticed the woman sitting on a shaded bench in the quiet heart of downtown Santa Rosa, too still for the rhythm of the world. Eventually, I stood. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just stood. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't look at street signs. My feet moved on their own, heels clicking against the sidewalk. The sound uneven, offbeat, like a heart just learning how to break. I passed a diner window where a family of 4 leaned over stacks of pancakes, laughing in that syrup-sticky, soft-lit way only people untouched by betrayal can manage. The mother cut pieces for the youngest child while the father gestured wildly with a fork mid-story. The kind of table I used to imagine having someday. A flower vendor on the corner called out something about dahlias and morning peonies, freshest of the day. I didn't pause. My chest was tight, not from anxiety. From nothingness. A hollowed-out space that used to hold trust. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, in the sunlit courtyard of the Sonoma Grace Chapel, guests were filtering into their rows. Phones buzzed with Instagram stories of soft ivory tablecloths, polished glassware, and white roses twined around an arch that cost more than a used car. Someone whispered they must have spent a fortune on this setup. Marissa stood near the entrance, bouquet in one hand, gripping it too tightly. She glanced at the doors. Once. Then again. She's probably stuck in traffic, she muttered, lips tight. Mom didn't even look up from her phone. If she shows up late, she said, still scrolling, she'll find a way to make it about her. Just like always. I might have laughed. Might have if it hadn't landed too close to truth. Back at the chapel, the printed programs were already placed neatly on each seat. I wasn't listed in them. No sister of the groom mention. No role. Not even a name. The family row didn't have an extra chair. And when the slideshow started, Marissa's surprise gift to Ethan, it glowed with childhood photos. Ethan fishing with dad. Birthday parties with cousins. Sleepovers with neighbors. Laughing with friends. Not a single frame with me in it. I kept walking. Each step felt like surrender, slow and unceremonious. My feet moved through downtown like they belonged to someone else. My skin felt stretched too tightly around me, like I didn't quite fit inside myself. But none of this was new. At 22, on Ethan's graduation weekend, I stayed up late helping him rewrite his college admission essays. Rearranging sentences, fixing grammar, inserting emotion. He slept through most of it. The final version? He got a scholarship. Everyone clapped. But when the ceremony ended, Mom told me the post-party was for his friends. Camille, you understand, right? Of course I did. I always did. I even helped pick out his shoes that weekend. I smiled then, thinking that if I smiled long enough, hard enough, maybe I'd stay in the frame. Maybe I'd matter. But not anymore. This wasn't just about him. Or her. Or the affair. Or the wedding. It was about years of being the person everyone called when they forgot their password. When they locked themselves out. When they needed a last-minute airport ride. Years of being convenient. Dependable. Background. Useful. But never cherished. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to stop apologizing for existing. At the corner near the old library, a pair of street musicians were setting up. A girl, 10, maybe 11, twirled beside an open violin case, her floral dress flaring with each spin. Her joy was loud. Her existence, unafraid. I watched her for a moment, just long enough to feel something stir. Then I walked on. My feet throbbed. Blisters bloomed along my heels. One shoe cracked against an uneven curb, and I staggered slightly. I didn't flinch. Didn't curse. Just walked, lopsided and silent, until I saw a building marked with a small blue restroom sign. I stepped inside. The overhead lights buzzed low and steady, like they were trying to hum me back into being. I picked the stall farthest from the door, locked it, and sat down on the closed lid. The light overhead flickered slightly, casting a faint buzz through the silence. My hands went to my hair. The pearl clip was still there. Still perfectly placed. I pulled it out gently and let it rest in my palm. It felt foreign now, like it belonged to another woman entirely, a woman who had woken up this morning planning to smile through someone else's big moment. Again. Even while carrying a private heartbreak that no one would ever ask about. I set it on my knee and stared at it. Marissa was married by now. Somewhere, probably in front of the floral arch I'd helped finance without anyone realizing, she was posing with Ethan, his arm resting protectively around her waist. Maybe they were slicing into a 3-tier lemon cake or whispering "thank you for coming" to great aunts I hadn't seen since high school graduations. No one had called me. No one had texted. Not to ask if I was okay. Not even to say, "Where are you?" I reached for my phone again. Powered it off. Let silence win. Eventually, I left the restroom and walked the final few blocks toward the harbor. The air there was different, salter, cleaner, breezier. The kind of air that made it easier to breathe. I stared out over the water for a long time. Waves lapped gently at the edge of the pier. Boats bobbed like they had no idea people were breaking inside, just a few streets away. I stood still until the ache in my feet made it impossible to pretend I was fine. Then I turned toward a small inn, half hidden behind a seafood shack with peeling blue paint. The woman at the front desk didn't ask any questions when I handed her my card and said, "One night." Under the name Karen. Karen had been my 3rd-grade teacher. She wore cardigan sets and tight buns and had a voice like steel wrapped in lavender. Once, when I'd cried over a crayon drawing someone ripped up, she'd said, "You don't have to be loud to be strong." The name felt like armor now. A clean keycard. A quiet bed. A name no one else would think to call me. I woke before the sun rose. Even though I hadn't set an alarm, my body knew. The room was dim, steeped in that early blue-gray light that makes everything feel like it's underwater. The beige walls were blank. The blackout curtains were drawn. The stillness stretched around me. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it came back. All of it. The bench. The violin music. Adrian's voice. Talia's hand. The missing chair at the chapel. The slideshow without my face. It settled into my chest like wet sand. I sat up slowly, the hotel sheets creasing around me. I hadn't unpacked. My sage green dress was still draped over the armchair. My clutch, unopened, sat on the small desk. The remote lay untouched. I stood, stretched just enough to soften the tightness in my shoulders, and padded over to the tiny coffee maker built into the wall. I filled the reservoir, slipped a paper cup beneath the spout, and pressed the brew button. That's when I heard it. A knock. Just once. Soft. Measured. I froze, hand hovering above a sugar packet. I crossed the carpet barefoot and opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty. No footsteps, no voices, no sign of anyone at all. But at my feet, an envelope. Manila. Unmarked. No name. No return address. I bent down and picked it up, turning it over. Blink. Something inside me, some small, cautious voice that still hoped, told me to leave it sealed. But my fingers didn't listen. I slid my thumb under the flap. Inside, a neat stack of photographs. And at the top of the pile, me. Real photographs. Glossy, clean-edged, deliberate. Each one more final than the last. Adrian and Talia laughing outside a boutique hotel I didn't recognize. Clinking wine glasses across a candlelit table, her lipstick a deep crimson I'd never dared wear. Another of them barefoot on a stretch of beach I knew he had never walked with me. I stared harder. Driftwood. Cypress trees. Pacific waves. Big sir? I had begged to go once. He said he was too busy that week. And then the final photo, a close-up. His arm around her waist. Her hand resting gently on her belly. And scrawled in slanted black ink on the bottom corner. She's pregnant. You deserve to know. I didn't drop the photo. I didn't scream. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, legs crossing automatically, and spread the photos out like pieces of evidence. 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted them like inventory, like if I could control the number, I could control the damage. My hands were steady. My breath wasn't. Inhale. Shallow. Exhale. Tighter. I studied their faces, his carefree grin, her high-gloss lipstick, The way her body leaned into his like it had always belonged there. My ribs pulled inward, like invisible thread was cinching them tighter and tighter. Still, I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, my brain did what it always did when pain threatened to snap me in two. It sorted. It analyzed. It did the math. That night he said he was stuck at the gallery reviewing consignment contracts. That matched the timestamp on the wine glass photo. The weekend he told me he had to drive to Berkeley for an art mediation. That was the beach. I cross-checked the moments in my mind. They lined up too cleanly to be coincidence. 2 years. 2 years of staggered time. Precision lies. Calibrated betrayals. All while I was hosting dinner parties for his donors, organizing silent auctions, and folding Ethan and Marissa's wedding programs late into the night. He was planning a family with someone else. And I was steaming the rehearsal dinner table runners. I walked to the bathroom, turned the shower knob, stepped in, fully clothed. The water warmed slowly, then surged down over me. My scalp, my spine, my knees. My nightshirt clung to me soaked. But I couldn't tell where the water ended and the grief began. It pressed into me, seeped under my skin. All those years spent trying to be gentle, agreeable, undemanding. All those times I said, it's fine, when it wasn't. And for what? He didn't stay. He didn't choose me. He chose the woman with polished nails and no memories of building a life together from scratch. I stood there until the mirror fogged completely. Then I stepped out, peeled the wet shirt from my skin, and wrapped myself in a towel. Back in the room, the photos were still there, curling slightly at the corners. Still watching me. This wasn't going to be a confrontation. It was going to be a strategy. If I yelled, they'd label me unstable. If I cried, they'd soothe themselves. If I showed pain, they'd write me off as bitter. No. If they thought I was broken, they'd stop watching. And that's exactly when people stop being careful. That's when they show you who they really are. I powered on my laptop. Opened a private browser. Santa Rosa Private Investigator. Discreet. Family law. A dozen options. I skipped the ones with cartoon magnifying glasses and "We catch cheaters" banners. I found a woman named Renita Q, a former legal consultant who specialized in domestic duplicity and financial extraction. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but it sounded like the right kind of ruthless. I booked an appointment. 4:30 p.m. In person. No message to Adrian. No reply to Ethan or Marissa. I didn't even open their texts. Some truths deserve silence. And some stories deserve new authors. Instead, I padded back toward the kitchenette, grabbed the last granola bar from the complimentary lobby basket I'd picked up the night before, and sat down at the tiny round table near the window. I chewed slowly. Not because I wanted to savor it, but because I had to force my stomach to remember how to want something. Halfway through, I realized it was the first thing I'd eaten in more than 24 hours. It didn't make me proud. It just made me aware of my limbs, of the weight in my chest, of the body that hadn't given up on me yet. So I wouldn't give up on it either. I brushed out my hair and changed into something clean, soft beige slacks and a crisp linen blouse I found still folded at the bottom of my overnight bag. I glanced toward the dresser and hesitated. Inside the top drawer, right where I had placed it the night before, sat the pearl hair clip. I picked it up, watched how the afternoon light caught on the smooth curve. Then I gently placed it back in the drawer. Not yet, I whispered. Like a sealed breath, it waited in the dark. By the time I left the inn, the sun had tilted west, and long shadows stretched across the sidewalks of Old Courthouse Square. The city was quieter now, past the brunch crowds, before the evening buzz. I didn't wear sunglasses to hide. I wore them because I didn't want to be seen the way I usually was: helpful, polite, accommodating. Today, I was none of those things. The walk to the investigator's office took just under 10 minutes. Every step felt weighted, not dramatic, just intentional. I passed a bakery with wide windows and pale pink trim. A woman lifted her toddler up to the glass as the child shrieked with joy at cupcakes topped with candy whales. I kept walking. The office was upstairs, tucked above a used bookstore with weathered awnings and stacked crates of $2 paperbacks. No neon sign. No bells. Just a discreet brass plaque. Renita Travers, Private Investigations. The kind of place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. Inside, the receptionist was soft-spoken, maybe early 20s, and offered me water. I declined. Renita emerged from a hallway, dressed in slate gray slacks and a tailored jacket. Late 40s, maybe early 50s. Her presence was efficient, no wasted motion. She offered a firm handshake. No small talk. Just a nod toward the door of her office. Right this way. The room was minimal. Clean lines. A desk. 2 chairs. No framed family photos. Just a single quote behind her desk, printed in serif black on cream paper. In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take. She waited until I sat. I reviewed the envelope you dropped off, she said, tapping a manila folder on the desk. And I pulled a few additional records I thought you might want to see. She opened the folder. Paper. Ink. Evidence. No preamble. Then she looked at me calm, direct. I need to ask you something, Miss Ferris. Her voice was measured, not unkind. Are you ready to know things you may never be able to unknow? I didn't hesitate. Yes. She nodded and slid the first document across the desk. This is a soft pull, nothing aggressive, nothing that triggers alerts. Just quiet inquiries. Her pen hovered over a set of bank statements. Here, she said, pointing. Withdrawals from your joint account. Large amounts. Spread out, always same-day transfers. To where? I asked, leaning in. A Shell LLC. Redwater Holdings. Formed 3 years ago. Registered out of Oregon. I frowned. That name means nothing to me. Renita's eyes didn't flinch. It should. The address listed traces back to a UPS box in Northwest Santa Rosa. She flipped another page. Primary contact listed. Adrian Ferris. And, just like that, something settled inside me. Not a shock. Not even betrayal. Just confirmation. And the beginning of something else entirely. One of the accounts is in your name. I blinked. No, I said slowly. I didn't open any business account. Renita didn't flinch. You did on paper. 5 years ago. My mouth went dry. 5 years ago. That was the year my father passed. The week I was living in and out of St. Joseph's Hospital. Long nights beside his bed, trying to stay focused despite the constant beeping monitors and the cruel, sterile overhead lights. I remembered the folder Adrian had handed me, white binder clips, color-coded tabs. I'd barely glanced at it. I was holding Dad's hand, trying not to cry. Adrian had said, "It's just to help with some tax filings. I'll walk you through it later." Later never came. And I never asked. Renita waited, her silence giving space for the truth to settle like dust on old memories. I looked up, my voice strained. Can you confirm that it's fraud? She shrugged lightly. Depends. If you can prove you were misled, coerced, or unaware of the financial intent, yes. But it's layered. He covered his tracks. Well, not perfectly. She turned the page and pushed another folder toward me. There's more. I hesitated. Her nod was small but encouraging. I opened it. Inside was a property record. At the top, Mercer Lane, Lakeview parcel, title adjustment. My parents' summer house. The one off the Sonoma Lake Trail. The place Dad used to call ours. The old dock with the peeling paint. The magnolia tree that bloomed late and dropped petals into the water like confetti. The title had been updated. Where my name once sat, co-beneficiary, it was now gone. Removed. Dated 6 months ago. Signed by my mother. The space behind my ribs caved slightly. It was always supposed to be split, I whispered, more to myself than to Renita. My dad promised that. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The silence told me everything. She never told me, I said. No one did. Renita tapped the date. 6 months ago. Anything significant around then? I squinted. Counting backward. 6 months ago. That's right after Ethan and Marissa announced the wedding, I said slowly. Something inside me twisted. Like the truth had always been there, curled in plain sight, and I'd simply chosen not to look. A memory blinked through. Dad's funeral. The chapel. My mother in a black wool coat, rigid in the front pew, clutching tissues with dry eyes. Marissa pacing outside, still on the phone with a florist. Me in the hallway, my hands numb, signing whatever Adrian handed me because I trusted him more than I trusted the chaos. I pressed a hand to my temple, the pressure behind my eyes building like a migraine. They didn't think I'd ever check, I said quietly. Renita's eyes were steady. That's how this usually goes. People rely on your silence. I stared at the documents spread before me, the careful deletions, the deliberate omissions, the clean clinical way I'd been removed. First from a marriage. Now from a family's legacy. The pain didn't scream. It constricted. Like a drawstring pulled tighter. I don't want revenge, I said at last. I just want the truth. I want to know how deep this goes. Renita folded her hands. That's the right place to start. I met her eyes. Cold. Unwavering. Can you find out? She nodded. I already have a plan in motion. I left Renita's office with both folders tucked deep into my leather bag. My fingers clutched the strap tight, like I was carrying something radioactive. Dangerous. Alive. Outside, downtown Santa Rosa hummed in golden light, oblivious. Cars passed. A teenager laughed into his phone. A barista arranged a chalkboard sign that read "Love starts with coffee." And I kept walking unnoticed. Unflinching. But this time, I was watching. Just another late evening in downtown Santa Rosa. Buses huffed at intersections. Couples wandered hand in hand past wine bars and artisan bakeries. And I walked through it all like a woman rehearsing the steps to someone else's life. By the time I reached the apartment, the sun had completely bled out of the sky, leaving behind a bruised kind of twilight. I climbed the stairs slowly, counting each one in my head. Inside, it smelled like Adrian. Not him exactly, his routine. That faint scent of citrus cologne woven into the upholstery, the steady hum of the air purifier, the empty glass on the kitchen counter next to a half-finished protein shake. He was sprawled across the couch in gym shorts, watching basketball, a bottle of beer balanced lazily on his stomach like it belonged there more than I did. "Hey, babe," he mumbled, eyes still fixed on the screen. "You didn't make it to the wedding either?" I set my bag down gently by the door. "Migraine," he added, shifting his weight. "Honestly, probably for the best. Family drama like that'll rot your brain." I just stood there, watching him in the lamplight, completely at ease. The curve of his arm over the backrest. The way his body fit that couch like muscle memory. As if I hadn't seen those photos less than 12 hours ago. As if I hadn't read my mother's signature on a deed that had erased me. "Busy at work?" I asked, voice soft. He nodded. "You know how it is. Paperwork stacked to the ceiling. Court filings. Traffic was a nightmare." "Right," I said. "In. Ballard." He glanced over briefly, then reached for the wine rack. "Want a glass?" "Sure." He poured it carefully, handed it to me like a peace offering, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. I let him. But I turned, just enough that his lips grazed air more than skin. He didn't seem to notice. Later, I told him I was too tired to come to bed and curled up on the couch with a throw blanket. He shrugged and disappeared into the bedroom, already yawning. I didn't sleep. When his snoring began, that open throat kind that meant deep sleep, I tiptoed toward the bedroom, made sure the door was fully shut, then turned back down the hallway. I opened the hallway closet, reached toward the back and pried up the loose floorboard I'd discovered months ago while cleaning. I unfolded the documents I'd hidden there, Adrian's fake LLCs, the silent withdrawals, the redacted property deed, my erased name. I tucked them into the space like old letters, like truths that didn't want to be touched yet. Then I replaced the board and set a pair of ankle boots over it. Only then did I unlock my phone, not to call anyone, just to look. The wedding hashtag had gone live. Ethan and Marissa had posted a carousel, Marissa glowing in lace, our mother crying in perfectly timed photos, champagne flutes in hand. A sun-drenched garden. String lights. A curated version of joy. The caption read, "The most magical day of my life. Couldn't have done it without my incredible family. 2 hearts hashtag E&M forever." Tagged, Mom. Cousin Faith. Dad's old business partner. A friend from Stanford. Not me. I wasn't just missing. I was unacknowledged. I slid down the wall and sat on the hardwood, knees bent, glass still in hand. When I was 29, Ethan moved to San Francisco. He didn't have the credit for the lease. I co-signed. Quietly paid the deposit. Never asked for it back. No one ever saw that. No one ever saw me. At Marissa's going-away dinner, she raised her glass, vintage Prosecco, of course, and said, "To everyone who helped me get here, you know who you are." And then she looked right past me. That night, I swallowed something bitter with my lemon spritzer and told myself it didn't matter. That it was just oversight. Just timing. It did matter. Now, everything did. I opened my laptop and began scanning every document in my possession. The property transfer. The bank withdrawals. The Shell Corporation filings. I searched local listings for forensic accountants. Cross-checked credentials. Made a spreadsheet. Color-coded tabs. I wasn't just collecting anymore. I was archiving. I was building a record. Not just of betrayal, but of truth, my truth. Then, with no hesitation, I opened Instagram for the last time. My profile picture was still there, me smiling next to Marissa at her college graduation. An old version of me, trying to stay in the frame, trying to be remembered. Delete account. Confirm. As the app disappeared, I whispered, "You won't get to frame the story this time." The air was sharp that morning, cooler than the forecast had promised. From the apartment window, downtown Santa Rosa looked washed out, all quiet gray and damp concrete under a low sky. I sat at the kitchen table, elbows resting beside a chipped black mug of coffee. The folders from Renita Travers were tucked neatly next to my laptop. Organized. Labeled. Undeniable. Adrian had left before dawn, claiming a breakfast meeting with a longtime client in Napa. His voice was too smooth. The kiss on my temple too perfectly placed. I didn't challenge him. I just nodded. Then I waited. Waited for the quiet. For the stillness that always came after he was gone. Once the apartment held only my breath, I opened the laptop and logged into the bank's secure portal. The joint accounts weren't just shared. They were weaponized. He had used them to launder trust and banish loyalty, one transaction at a time. Click. Transfer. The funds flowed into a newly opened trust account, structured last night with a small law firm out of Spokane. Registered under my maiden name, Camille Whitmore. No flags. No alerts. Next, I revoked his authority as power of attorney on all jointly held assets. Then, an email to our CPA, with a CC to a personal backup account I'd created at 3:14 a.m. Subject line, urgent, request for review of historical transactions. Tone, professional. Precise. Emotionless. Please review all transactions initiated in the past 18 months. I am particularly concerned about transfers made without spousal review or consent. This matter is time-sensitive. Please document thoroughly and respond promptly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't text threats. I didn't leave hints or plant traps. There would be no screaming match. Not from me. Every keystroke I made was legal, strategic, and invisible to a man who still thought I was playing house. I opened the drawer beside me and removed the pearl hair clip. I didn't fasten it into my hair. I didn't even touch it beyond laying it gently beside my trackpad. Like a witness. Like a seal. You once existed quietly, I whispered to myself. Now you exist on your own terms. Then I opened the scanning app. One by one, I uploaded every page from Renita's files. The photos. The falsified LLC paperwork. The notarized real estate transfers. The signature overlays. And when the last page uploaded and I clicked submit, I didn't cry. I just closed the folder. Sat back. And exhaled. Then I logged onto the IRS whistleblower portal. No drama. No narration. Just data. Subject line. Multiple undeclared accounts registered under spousal identity. Attachments. Timeline, routing slips, scanned LLC paperwork, notarized deeds. Click. Next, I opened a burner email and typed in an address I knew by heart. Francis Meyerso. My cousin in Chicago. Tax attorney. Harvard trained. Lifelong single. Hasn't missed a Christmas card in 15 years, even when I forgot hers. Subject: from someone who trusted the wrong man. No message body. Just attachments. I closed the laptop and exhaled. It wasn't relief. It wasn't pride. It was a shift. A realignment in my bones. Like standing up straighter after years of folding myself into a shape that pleased everyone but me. I needed to move, so I stepped outside. Walked a few blocks with no destination, just to feel the earth. To hear the sound of my own steps. My flats crunched over wet leaves from last night's rain. I stopped beside a lamppost and rested my palm against the cool metal. It grounded me, sharp and real. The shaking in my hands wasn't fear anymore. It was voltage. By the time evening arrived, I'd cooked dinner. Lasagna. Adrian's favorite, especially when he wanted comfort, but didn't know how to ask for it. He came home late, as usual. His coat was slung over one shoulder, hair still perfectly in place despite the lie he'd probably told someone that day. He sniffed the air and looked genuinely surprised. "Well," he said, kicking off his shoes. "Either I'm in trouble, or you missed me." I smiled faintly as I plated the food. "Neither," I said. "Just catching up on things." At the table, I poured him a glass of red and asked casually, "Did you move something in the joint account?" "A few numbers looked off this morning." He blinked too long, then recovered. "Oh yeah," he said, chuckling lightly. "Probably just some stuff I shifted around. You know how that gets." "I'll double-check." I nodded and let the silence hang. Let it tighten around him. "Sure," I said. "We'll see." He grew quieter. Ate slower. I didn't watch him like a woman watching her husband. I watched him like a woman watching the final scene of a play she'd already memorized. Every line. Every pause. Every false gesture. Later that night, he fell asleep with the TV still on, some documentary flickering across his face in half-light. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom, arms crossed. Watched his outline beneath the blanket. Then leaned gently against the frame and whispered, "You still think I'm asleep?" The next morning, Adrian was still in bed when the mail arrived. I heard the soft groan of the mail slot, followed by the dull thwop of something hitting the floor. I didn't move right away. Just stared at the ceiling, arms folded across my chest. Let the stillness soak in. Then I rose, walked to the door, and picked up the heavy white envelope. Certified. Government seal. No return address. I didn't even open it. I placed it beside the coffee pot. When Adrian finally shuffled in, eyes swollen, shirt wrinkled, he reached for his mug and noticed the envelope. He froze. Turned it over once. Then again. Then again. Finally, he used a butter knife to slice it open, trying not to tear the edges. He read it once. Then again. A third time, slower. His lips pressed into a thin line. His fingers trembled slightly as he set it on the counter. "You okay?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Yeah," he muttered, scratching his temple. But his voice cracked. And for the first time in years, I didn't rush to smooth it over. "Is stuff?" "Probably just a mistake." "Probably," I echoed, and took another sip of my coffee. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. By midday, I noticed him in the bedroom. Door cracked just enough to let his voice slip out in fragments. He spoke low, with a tight edge. "No, don't reply to anything yet. Just sit tight. We may need to reshuffle some things." Then a ping, soft but unmistakable. His phone screen lit up just before he angled it away from view. "Talia, need to lay low. This could be messy." What Adrian didn't know was that he wasn't the only one who'd received a package. Someone else had too. Carla Riggs, the managing partner at his firm. Francis had made sure the documentation I provided was clean, direct, and duplicated across several channels. One of them ended up on Carla's desk. No return address. No sender. But no deniability either. That afternoon, Adrian was summoned to the firm's HR office. They didn't accuse him directly, not yet, but words like internal compliance, asset declaration, and independent review were mentioned. Gently. Formally. He came home looking like he'd run 10 miles through fog. He didn't mention it. Didn't say a word. He just set his phone on silent, poured himself a glass of whiskey, and sat on the couch watching a sitcom he normally quoted aloud, but didn't laugh at once. I didn't ask. I let the silence do the cutting. Meanwhile, across town, Marissa's carefully arranged world began to crack like old glass. At a dinner with her new in-laws, an elegant family with polished smiles and questions like subpoenas, my name surfaced. So, her new brother-in-law asked between bites of halibut, "I remember you said your sister helped with the wedding budget?" Marissa froze. Fork midair. "Oh, she helped early on, but things shifted. I mean, she wasn't really involved by the end." "Interesting," he said, glancing at something on his phone. "Because I thought the down payment came from her escrow?" Her husband shifted in his seat. Her mother-in-law raised one meticulously sculpted brow. "I was under the impression that money came from your side of the family," she said calmly. The rest of the meal was a blur of tight smiles and silent tension. That same evening, I sat quietly in the back of a seminar room tucked inside a boutique law firm just off Mendocino Avenue. Francis had been invited to speak on asset shielding and ethical discovery, topics he'd mastered long before I ever knew I'd need them. The room was full of pressed collars, quiet pens, and polished watches. I wore slate gray. My hair was slicked back cleanly, and the pearl hair clip, once a sentimental artifact, was now pinned with precision just above my left ear. It wasn't jewelry anymore. It was declaration. I no longer sat in rooms where I had to shrink. Not anymore. After the session ended, I stood near the refreshment table, quietly pouring a cup of decaf, when Frances approached. "You were smart to send it anonymously," she said, her tone casual, eyes sharp. I tilted my head slightly, letting the corner of my mouth lift, but didn't confirm. She smiled. "But I knew it was you. The formatting was too perfect. You always use that narrow margin setting." I raised my cup in a small salute. "Some habits," I said, "are hard to unlearn." She nodded once, approvingly. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone whose voice didn't need to be raised to be heard. I let a quiet laugh slip. "They've opened a preliminary review," Frances added, voice low. "You'll likely be subpoenaed, not as a suspect. As the only person who wasn't losing their mind." Back home, I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. But I saw it. Adrian's LinkedIn changed without fanfare. His job title disappeared, replaced with "on extended leave." No explanation. No congratulations. Marissa's Instagram went dark. Her latest brand partnership with a boutique homeware label in Sonoma Valley was postponed due to internal reassessment. The PR statement was vague. Padded. Empty. And me? I pulled the pearl hair clip from my hair, still warm from the long seminar, and placed it gently into a velvet box I'd labeled in black ink. Evidence A. The following week opened with a kind of silence that had weight. Not peace. Consequence. That Monday afternoon, I returned from a final consult with Francis to find Adrian's car gone from the driveway. Inside, the house felt still, like it had exhaled and was waiting for what came next. I opened the door slowly, half expecting a shattered dish or a scrawled note left on the kitchen island. But he was there, sitting on the edge of the couch, a duffel bag at his feet, one hand wrapped tight around the handle like he was holding onto a cliff. "I didn't know how to start," he said, voice softer than I'd heard in years. "They're investigating everything. The firm suspended me. I'm on leave until further notice." He looked up, his eyes rimmed not with remorse, but exposure. The terror of being seen without the armor of excuses. "I made mistakes," he started again. The pressure got to me. I know I messed up. I set my keys gently on the counter. Said nothing. "Can we just reset?" he asked, like this was about mismatched schedules or forgotten anniversaries. I sat across from him, folding my hands neatly in my lap. Met his gaze. "You've been erasing me for years," I said calmly. "This isn't revenge, Adrian. This is me catching up." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he'd rehearsed lines in the mirror. But now the script was gone. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and came back with an envelope. Thick, plain, unlabeled except for his name. He took it. "What's this?" "Not a threat," I said. "Just the truth." Inside, a numbered list. Every financial transfer, every light traced, screenshots, timestamps, travel records, calls logged. all cross-referenced with the nights I'd been told he was working late or in Sacramento for depositions. At the bottom of the final page, one handwritten line. Everything he thought I wouldn't find, I did. Goodbye. He didn't follow me when I left the room. Didn't call out. Just sat there, staring down at the envelope like it might detonate. That same evening, the doorbell rang. I paused, then opened it. Marissa stood there on the front porch. Eyes puffy, makeup smudged. Her hair pulled back in a hurried knot. Her designer coat slightly wrinkled. She looked undone. I shouldn't have come unannounced, she whispered. No, I said. But you're here. I saw the audit headlines, she murmured. And Mom finally told me what happened with the house. I didn't respond. I let the silence stretch, let her earn it for once. I didn't know it was that bad, she said. Why didn't you say anything? I leaned against the doorframe, one hand still on the knob. I stopped talking, I said quietly. When you stopped listening. She nodded. And for the first time, didn't try to interrupt. Just once. We stood there, Marissa and I, not crying exactly, but no longer pretending we weren't broken in places we'd spent years trying to hide. There was no apology that could untangle the knots. But something softened between us anyway. A quiet acknowledgement. When she left, I didn't watch her go. I turned and climbed the stairs. Then I started packing. Not everything. Just what mattered. My grandmother's photo in the cracked brass frame. My certifications from the years I thought no one noticed. The books I had dog-eared during sleepless nights. The manila folders Francis had helped me organize. And the pearl hair clip. I didn't touch the rest. The kitchen stayed exactly the way Adrian liked it. The couch pillows arranged the way he always repositioned them. Even the silver cufflinks he never wore but insisted on keeping. The house could have them. They belonged to a version of me that stayed too long. 2 days later, I moved into a quiet apartment near the bay in Tacoma. The floors creaked when I walked barefoot in the mornings, and the windows faced west, where the water turned copper just before sunset. The light filled the small space with a kind of peace I hadn't known I was missing. I started working part-time with Francis, reviewing portfolios for small firms with murky bookkeeping. She called me meticulous. Trusted. I called it starting over. The mornings were different. I didn't rush. My breath wasn't shallow. I didn't check myself in reflections, wondering if I was too loud, too much, too inconvenient. One afternoon, I stood in the tiny bathroom, the mirror fogged from the shower. I looked at myself, not to judge. Not to fix. Just to see. There are wounds that take years to name, I whispered. But once you do, they can't own you anymore. I reached into the drawer. Pulled out the pearl clip. Pinned it into my hair, not because I missed the girl who once wore it, but because I finally understood the woman she had become. Before dinner that night, I sat at my desk and opened a blank page. No header. No salutation. Just a final release. I forgive you. Not for you. For me. Because now I don't need your version of the story. I have my own. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for seeing me. I don't know what part of my story struck something in you. Maybe it was the quiet betrayal. The way love turns into silence. Or maybe it was how easy it is to disappear in your own life while smiling through someone else's version of it. I'm not telling this story because I want sympathy. I'm telling it because I know I'm not alone. I know someone out there has sat at a dinner table full of people and felt like a ghost. Someone has stayed 1 year too long in a marriage because leaving felt like failing. Someone has gone unnoticed while making sure everyone else felt seen. So here's what I'm asking. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. But more than that, tell me what you would have done. Tell me what moment made you clench your jaw or whisper yes under your breath. Tell me what you would say to the version of me who was afraid to check the bank accounts or question why she kept being left out of family photos. Because your voice matters. Not just to me, but to everyone else watching who needs to know they're not the only one. And if you've ever been made to feel small, please subscribe. Join me here, where we don't shrink anymore. Where we learn, share, and remind each other that quiet strength is still strength. The next part of the story is coming soon. It's the part where I stop surviving and start living. I hope you'll be there for it. Because no one rewrites their story alone. And I'd love to have you beside me when the page turns.